When you play the Game of Thrones,
Subscribe and like.
you die. There is no middle ground.
Alright, hello YouTube, welcome back to the Grease Comedy YouTube channel. Today's video, I wanted to take a look at some of the plotline in Meereen, and some of the things I don't think I've really discussed on this channel, or something that I don't really feel like I see talked about in the community that much. But we all talk about the Battle of Fire, right? And what's going to happen with the Yunkish and the rest of the slave forces that are sieging Meereen at the current time. But something that I don't think a lot of people even really consider is what's going to have to happen afterwards, regardless of who wins and what people survive, what people don't survive. You also have to remember that we get information very late into A Dance with Dragons. The city of Volantis is also against Daenerys, and they are sending a fleet ranging from 300 to 500 ships to Meereen. You find this information out from Victarion and from Barristan's first chapter that he gets in Dance with Dragons. But either way, this is a sizable force. 300 to 500 ships is at most 10 times larger than Victarion's fleet. Now, maybe Victarion's fleet that he currently has at Slaver's Bay is a bit more experienced, definitely better ships, but still a 10-to-1 advantage at maybe the most is not great odds. Victarion himself thinks that this could be quite a difficult task to defeat. But I think the one thing that also presents itself is that Victarion only has 53 ships when he actually enters the battle in Slaver's Bay. So the big thing when you think about that is, okay, that's not enough ships to take over all the Ironborn men that have come with Victarion, all the Unsullied, all the other people that want to follow her and her sellsword companies that are with her right now, the Second Sons, the Windblown, and the Stormcloaks. So how is she going to get more ships? And well, you think about this and you go, wait, the Volantis fleet is also coming to Meereen with a lot more ships. It seems likely that what we're going to see is probably a slave revolt. You have that many ships, it's going to take a lot of slaves to get those ships with however many men that are actually not slaves to Meereen. And something we find out from Tyrion when he is in Volantis is a lot of things. One of those being that the slaves are basically on the cusp of having an uprising, or at least the lower class is on a uprise. And also another thing that we learn there is that there is basically a 5 slaves to 1 free person ratio within Volantis. And so there seems like 2 things are likely to happen, in my opinion, going through Winds of Winter, or maybe I guess even in A Dream of Spring. However long you think it's going to take Daenerys to get to Westeros, I personally think the end of Winds of Winter makes sense, but we'll see. But either way, I think when this fleet from Volantis reaches Meereen, I think the thing that's going to occur is they're basically going to have an uprising of slaves when they see the dragons. Maybe they see that the Yunkish have already been basically defeated, and the rest of the forces that are there are basically being routed, which is, I think, likely. If you want to see why I believe that, I would check out some of my Battle of Fire or Battle of Meereen videos. I think the last one I did, which was, I think, for last Christmas event, for the Winds of Winter event that I did, that I always do for December, and I will have another one this year as well, is I went over kind of the entire battle, and I think it's very likely that Barristan and our forces of the pro-Dany side are going to win. I think this Volantis fleet is going to be the perfect fleet to get Daenerys over to Westeros, because that's something that I think I've even overlooked in how many ships Victarion really has to help Daenerys. When you have a fleet where maybe it's a 500 at the max, like Victarion says, a 500 ship fleet, plus you add, Victarion's fleet to it, and you're getting closer to like 600 ships, that is plenty to take them over to Westeros. And so that's where I think that's going. But on the other side of it, let's also think about this. When is that even going to occur, right? Is there going to be almost another battle for Meereen? It's kind of getting repetitive at this point. We've had so many different sieges of Meereen, and it's switched hands. And there's been so many different battles so far for Meereen, we probably could see one more. I think this would make sense where Daenerys is coming back to the city with the Dothraki, and she arrives just in time for the Volantis fleet to basically be in an uprising, more or less. The slaves, having an uprising, taking control from the masters, kind of similar to what we've kind of already seen with Daenerys already, how she inspires people to rise up for her. And I think that's going to occur here, especially when Daenerys gets back into the story of Meereen, because I am somebody that really thinks that the Dothraki plot is going to take I would say at least half of the book. I think the first half of the book will be about establishing Daenerys going to either Vase Dothrak or just kind of going with the Dothraki and slowly taking over them, right? Becoming this kind of fabled, the stallion who mounts the world. I think it's going to end up being her, not her son like it was maybe prophesized to be in book one, but her. I think it's going to be her and Drogon, and she comes back with probably a lot of Dothraki, something even rivaling maybe Drogo's Khalasar within the first book. I think that would complete kind of her Dothraki arc from the starting point of book one now to getting to book six. I think it makes sense that she arrives kind of similar, and it also stays kind of with how the show did it as well, having her come back right as there's another basically siege of Meereen with a huge fleet, and that's the fleet that basically allows Daenerys to go to Westeros. I think that makes a lot of sense in terms of matching the show with the book and where we end up there. It's just going to be very different because the show kind of combined, I think, the second siege of Meereen and the third siege of Meereen together. And again, the book and the show are just very different as well. And so I think Daenerys kind of arrives kind of in that second half of the book. And you got to think about, not only does she have to leave Meereen because she has to set up how their laws or their culture of Slavers Bay is going to be, probably changing that name given that she's kind of defeated Slavers Bay at this point. You got to think, who is going to be ruling when she leaves? How is it going to be established that she keeps up her rulership and her laws over Slavers Bay? That's got to be something she's going to have to figure out. How does the Sons of the Harpy plot resolve itself? I'm assuming is going to betray Dany, which I think is going to be Skahaz the Shave Pate, which I think is the most likely person to betray her. Maybe it is Reznak. Maybe it's, his daughter, the Green Grace. I think it could be a mixture of a lot of different people for Daenerys. How does she deal with that stuff, right? How does she punish those people and all that? How does that kind of conclude with her Meereen plot? Then how do you have her interacting with characters that she's never met before? How is she going to interact with Victarion and Maquaro? How is she going to interact with someone like Marwyn, who is on his way to find Daenerys? How is he going to react to Tyrion and also Jorah being back? And so when you start putting this all together and you start having, okay, there's multiple people that Daenerys needs to meet, have conversations with, establish how they're going to be in her court, there's just so much Daenerys has to do. And then you also think about it that George has kind of hinted at, we also may see Daenerys, not just going straight to Westeros, right? Not from Meereen to Westeros like the show did it, but maybe making some stops. I, for one, thinks it makes a lot of sense for her to stop in Volantis on her way back. We know that Victarion stops in Volantis when he was going to Meereen. It makes sense that she would stop there. Also, again, I think you could see a slave uprising there as well. Given what I've talked about already, that the slaves, are 5-1 on free men, I think easily could be brewing for an uprising, and that was already foreshadowed with Tyrion and Jorah's chapter in Volantis. You also, I think, could likely see her going to Pentos as well, having one last, maybe interaction with Illyrio, as well as getting the rumblings of this, Targaryen pretender. And again, she's believing these Quaithe prophecies because of the things that are occurring, Quentin popping up and, this disease and plague happening. She's starting to believe in those things, and she's going to believe it even more when Tyrion and Victarion also fulfill some of that prophecy and arrive as well. I think that she's going to probably stop in Pentos because also the Tattered Prince may want his due as well. He was asking for Pentos. There's a lot of things that I think Daenerys has to do, and that's why I think that George R. R. Martin's really in a tough spot with her because, yes, he does have a lot of things in place and in motion to do, but I almost feel like, how does she get to Westeros by the end of the book when she has so much to do? And I really do believe that Daenerys will have the most POV chapters in the next book. And if she doesn't, I think if you combine kind of her plot, her POVs with the other POVs in her camp, it will be the dominant POV of the book. The way we talk about, for instance, Ned in book 1, I really think book 6 is going to be Daenerys's book. I think she's going to have the most time to get through all these plots, conclude everything in Essos, so that when maybe the last chapter for Daenerys hits and she's in Dragonstone, it feels like we came to the right ending for her in the East. Now, I've also thought that maybe he could push that back. Maybe we don't see Daenerys get to Dragonstone until the first chapter of A Dream of Spring. That could also make sense. But let me know what you guys think. I've kind of talked about Daenerys a number of times over the years on this channel, but this is just an aspect of it I hadn't really talked about before, and it's something that I don't think I really put as much value on it because, again, and this topic is really only mentioned 2 or 3 times at the very end of A Dance with Dragons, like I mentioned in this video, so it's something that's very easy to forget. But yeah, I'd love to hear what you guys think, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye, guys.